It is I, your honorable sensei, and across from me is no one.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But this is still your Longturnlarry podcast. And today, we're talking about Yuna, Hope of Spira. Now, usually, this deck tech would be Selesnya, but Wizards of the Coast didn't give me a 5-mana summoner. And you're probably saying, well, Terra is technically all 5 colors because of her backside.
She's not a summoner, so she didn't count.
So this is our first Rule 0 deck tag. We're breaking the rules, and we don't give a fuck. Stone Cold Steve Austin, make that glass break.
No, it's not!
We're probably going to get demonetized because we're using the Stone Cold Steve Austin glass break. So, what does Yuna do? Yuna is 3 generic green and white for a 3/5 human cleric. She states during your turn, Yuna and other enchantment creatures you control have trample, lifelink, and ward 2. So, it's going to be really hard for them to interact on our turn. And then at the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So this deck will be a 5-color reanimator deck. So we want to put them boys in the yard and then reanimate them with Yuna or other things that we'll get to. So, we need to list all of our summons so you can know what we're focusing this deck around. These first set of summons, they're decent, okay? They're not the big dog summons, but they help us get to where we need to get to. We have Anima, Fenrir, Good King Mog the 12th, Ixion, the Maggot Sisters, Primal Garuda, and Shiva. One thing you'll notice about most summons is their first chapter usually has some form of removal. And that is something we really, really like. I'm not playing any board wipes in here because of the massive amounts of removal that we have on the majority of our creatures here. Now, these next 8 summons, these are the big dog summons. These are the ones you especially love to see in your graveyard. So, probably the one that you want to see first is Summon Titan. It's a generic green for Saga Titan. He's got reach and trample. He's a 7/7. First chapter, mill 5 cards. Second chapter, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then 3, until the end of turn, another target creature you control gains trample and gets +X, where X is the number of lands you control. We really want to see him early so we can start fueling our graveyard. If we have already been sort of fueling our graveyard, that second ability will put us in the lead when it comes to ramp. And then we can buff up, it's usually Yuna, by a lot and smash in for that good old commander damage. Vala 4 is 4 generic and a blue for a 5/4 Saga Drake. First chapter, each opponent chooses a creature with the greatest mana value among creatures they control. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. I am telling you, this one is so easy to abuse. We can keep all the creatures off our opponent's battlefields if we can keep triggering this first chapter. Chapter 2, 3, and 4 states tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. It's sort of mid, but it's still a 5/4 flying body. Yo, Jimbo, 3 generic and a white. First chapter is really the most important chapter to us. Exile target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature an opponent controls. The second and third chapter gives us a little bit of a propaganda effect. Fourth chapter gives us treasure tokens equal to the number opponents control a creature with power 4 or greater. Now, this one is probably my favorite one to abuse because it's so much fun to play. Esper Valley Garmanda?
Belligarmanda.
I still don't know how to say this shit. 3 generic and a red for a Saga Drake. Flying Haste 3/3. Chapter 1, exile an instant or sorcery card from each graveyard. Ooh. Chapter 2, 3, and 4, add red for each lore counter on this saga. You may cast an instant or sorcery card, exile it with this saga, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. Now, the thing that makes this thing broken is something that this card does not say. Typically, cards that allow you to play cards from your graveyard state if a spell would be cast this way and put into the graveyard, exile it instead. This does not have that on here. So what we could do is manipulate the lore counters on this and make sure that when we cast the spells that we're wanting to cast from graveyards, if we get him back to chapter 1, we could keep casting those spells. Really, really broken. Kujata, Big Broly, Triple Haste, Saga Ox, 7/5, lightning ability, deals 3 damage, essentially to up to 2 target creatures. Ice, up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. And then fire, you discard a card, then draw 2 cards. Whenever you discard a card this way, this creature deals damage equal to that card's mana value to each opponent. Because this card is dealing that damage, we will be gaining life if Yuna's on the battlefield because she gives us lifelink to our enchantment creatures. Now, I saved the 3 best for last. We got Big Dog, Primal Odin, sitting on a horse. 4 generic, black for a Saga Knight 5/3. First chapter ability, destroy target creature the opponent controls. Bow! He a young YN. He hit the battlefield. He hitting the op immediate. Chapter 2, this is how you know he a YN. This creature gains, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. You about to lose Triple H. That's what you about to lose. Yeah, and remember, Yuna gives our enchantment creatures lifelink, trample, and ward 2 on her turn. Really easy to die. And third chapter ability, draw 2 cards. each player is going to lose 2 life. Big Dog, Bahamut. See, he even got mutt in the name. That's how you know he a big dog. Non-generic, Saga Dragon, Flying, 9/9. Chapter 1 and 2. Destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. We getting them out of there. Chapter 3. We drawing 2 cards. Chapter 4. Game ending. This creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. So if you got 30 mana value worth of permanents, we're going to do 30 damage to everybody. And we reanimators, so we reanimate. We casting these. Dead as hell. Dead as hell. And then finally, we got Knights of the Round Table, 6 generic white for a Saga Knight, indestructible, 3/3, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Create 3 2/2 White Knight creature tokens. He an army in a can. He an army in the can. That's a whole gang of niggas. 1 card, 1 gang. Final chapter ability. Other creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Put an indestructible counter on each of them. How you fucking with me? How you fucking with me? How? How? You ain't. You ain't. Dead as hell. Dead as hell. We got 3 more summons in here, but they humans. So we gotta separate them. They ain't sagas. They're not enchantments on the front side. So we don't discriminate. You know we had to put Terra in the deck. And if somebody hating, I don't want you to play Rule 0. That's cheating. You could just pull Terra out. The deck won't be as good, but
you hating ass nigga. Don't nobody give a fuck with your dumb ass thing. Give me this motherfucker.
But Terra the Magical Adept, 1 generic red green for a human wizard warrior 4/2. Whenever she enters, we're gonna mill 5 cards so we can put 1 enchantment card milled this way into our hands. For 4 generic red green, we can exile Terra and flip her. On her backside, she's a flying 6/6. And chapters 1, 2, and 3 state create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary enchantment you control. It gains haste. If it's a saga, put up to 3 lore counters on it. And then you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next instep. And then finally, we have the last one that gives us double Wooburg. Joshua and Clive, they're getting participation trophies. They're really just here to fuel our reanimation. Josh, when he enters, we get to discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. He's got a whole backside. It's all right. It's all right. We ain't hating on him. It's all right. Clive, when he enters, we may discard our hand and then draw cards equal to our devotion to red. Honestly, I'm not going to cap. Most of the time, our devotion to red might be like 3 or 4, but we still get to discard our entire hand and draw some cards so we can get some of the big dogs out of hand so we can reanimate them later. He does have a backside that is pretty good. Chapter 1, he fights a creature. And chapters 2 and 3, we get 4 red mana. So we got all of these sagas, all of these lore counters, all of these finale counters. We gotta manipulate them somehow. So we got some bad history teachers. They're bad history teachers because they remove lore counters. I know it was a bad joke. So we have pretty much 4 of these pretty much do the same thing. We got the number one remover Hex Parasite for X and black. We can move up to X counters from target permanent. He gets a buff. We don't care about the buff. Power Conduit does the same thing. Remove a counter from a permanent you control, and then we can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. That's the only one we're going to use. Feign the Broker and Oaka have tap abilities that do essentially the same effect. Oaka allows us to draw a card when we remove a counter. Feign the Broker can remove a counter and give us a treasure. We have Teleportation Circle and Thassa Deep Dwelling. You're probably looking at me crazy right now. What do you mean? How do these remove counters? Well, if you blink the creature, we just reset it back to 1. And remember, most of our creatures have removal on their first saga. So we can blink them multiple times and start hitting all our ops. We got Big Dog. We had to put him in here. Sin Unending Cataclysm. I'm telling you, you get this card out, this card will win you games. Technically, he's a summon too. If you know the lore. He is summoned, but they didn't want to give us that. 5 generic green and blue for a 5/5 Leviathan Avatar. Flying Trample. As Sin enters, remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Sin enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. And when it dies, put the number of counters on target creature you control. Then shuffle this card into its owner's library. What you gonna do when you got a 35/35 Flying Trample fish nigga? What you gonna do? And even if you deal with him, we're just gonna move his counters onto something else. Crazy. So outside of our sagas, we got some other bomb things that we want to reanimate. We have Debtor's Kneel and Virtue of Persistence. They essentially both do the same thing for us. We can have this be put to the graveyard, and then we can put this into the graveyard, and Yuna can reanimate these, and then on every upkeep during our turn, we can reanimate a creature. Why is that important? With Yuna and Debtor's Kneel or Virtue of Persistence, we essentially have 2 ways to reanimate every turn, which is insane. It makes it very hard for them to deal with our commander, because we'll just leave it into the graveyard and then we'll reanimate it back, and then we get to our end step, and then we can start reanimating other things. Demon of Fate's Design it's a 6/6 demon enchantment creature for 4 generic black Flying Trample. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an enchantment spell by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Archetype of Endurance is absolutely insane. 6 generic green for a enchantment creature Boar, 6/5. Creatures you control have hexproof. Creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and can't gain hexproof. Colossal Sky Turtle. He's just a big ass turtle. We really don't care about the mana cost. He puts himself in the graveyard with its channel abilities. We have channel 2 generic and a green. We can discard it, return target card from our graveyard to our hand. So typically these are going to be our non-enchantment creatures or instants and sorceries. And then we also have the secondary channel ability. 1 generic and a blue. We can discard them, return target creature to its owner's hand. So we can either use this to save a creature or to bounce something problematic or just, put them in the graveyard. And then finally, he might be a small dog, but he big in heart. We got Calyx Guided by Fate. 1 generic, green, white for a 2/2 legendary enchantment creature, human druid. Whenever Calyx Guided by Fate or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Whenever Calyx or an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may create a token that's a copy of a non-legendary enchantment you control. Do this only once each turn. Calyx gets big as hell, and then he just starts being able to duplicate the enchantments we already have. Insane card, insane value. So, Khalees once said, "My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard." And that's exactly what these cards do. These are our milkshakes, and they put the boys in the graveyard. Shout out to SBMTG. He created that joke. I love saying it. Go check out his content. I had to tell you, I did lie. We do have technically one more Saga creature in Esper Origins. 1 generic and a green for sorcery, Surveil 2. You gain 2 life. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, exile it, and then put it onto the battlefield transform under its owner's control. We have Esper Manduin, Chapter 1. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent, put it in your hand. Ooh. Chapter 2, add 2 green. Chapter 3, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. We have more enchantment creatures here that can be reanimated. We have Fear of Missing Out. It enters, we get to discard a card, we get to draw a card. And then if we have Delirium, which is really easy for us to fill, because remember, most of our creatures are sagas, so they are both an enchantment and a creature, filling 2 of the things that we need for Delirium. So all we need is like a land and like an artifact or instant or sorcery. Boom, we already got Delirium. Once we do, whenever this attacks for the first time, we get to untap target creature and we get an additional combat phase. We have Overlord of the Belmerk and Overlord of the Flood Pits. Overlord of the Belmerk allows us to mill 4 cards. Then we may return a non-avatar creature card or planeswalker from our graveyard to our hand. Overlord of the Flood Pits allows us to draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card. Of course, we had to have the staples. Frantic Search essentially is free. And then Ripples Undeath. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, mill 3 cards. You may pay 1 and lose 3 life. If you do, put a card from among those cards into your hand. So some of these are essentially like tutors to our graveyard. So we have Buried Alive, Entomb, Lively Dirge, Final Partings, and Unmarked Grave. So we get to just search for something, throw it into our graveyard. It'll probably be reanimated on the same turn. So we have 2 more tutor effects. So Search for Glory. is an amazing card. Search your library for a snow permanent, a legendary card, or a saga, reveal it, put it to your hand, and then shuffle your library. You gain life if you use any type of snow mana to cast a spell. So not only can this go get legendary creatures that are hard for us to reanimate, it can just go grab us a saga that we need to cast that turn. Cruelty of Gix is one of my favorite tutors of all time because it's not just a tutor. It sorta does about everything. This has read ahead, so we can't just go to the chapter ability that we need. So, chapter 1 is probably the one we use the least. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a creature or planeswalker card from among it. They will discard that card. Chapter 2 is the tutor effect. And then if that wasn't good enough for you, the final chapter allows us to reanimate a creature from any graveyard. Talking about reanimating, we do need ways to reanimate outside of Yuna that aren't enchantments, just in case something happens. Like if we get board wiped. So we have Resurgent Belief and Open the Vaults. They essentially do the same thing. We get to return all artifacts and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under its owner's control. Yes, it happens for everybody, but since we're a soccer deck, we're more likely to be able to take advantage of this than other people. And then we have Dance of the Mans. Return up to X target artifacts and or non-or enchantment cards, each with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 enchantments in addition to their other types. Let's go ahead and close this out with the vegetables.
I don't want vegetables. Fuck vegetables. I want McDonald's. Eat your fucking vegetables before I stroke the fuck out of you, you bastard.
That you need are ramp and card draw. Our ramp is pretty generic. We're playing Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits, and Chromatic Lantern. Sanctum Weaver is a creature that taps for mana of 1 color equal to the amount of enchantments we control. Greater Tanuki essentially acts as a rampant growth. We could go find a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped with its channel ability, and then we can reanimate it later. And then Overlord of the Hauntwoods, whenever it enters or attacks, we get to make a everywhere land. And then finally, we have Binding of the Old Gods. It removes a non-land permanent on the first chapter, ramps us with a forest, not basic, but a forest. On the second chapter, on the third chapter, it gives all our creatures Death Touch. And since Yuna gives our creatures Trample, we only need to assign 1 damage for it to be considered lethal, and we can trample over. Finally, we are playing all of the pseudo enchantresses. These enchantresses care about enchantments entering because most of the time we are not casting these enchantments. So we have Eidolon of Blossoms, Entity Tracker, and Setessan Champion. You're probably looking at me crazy. Hey, yo, shouldn't you have more card draw in the deck? Since we're playing out of our graveyard and we're fueling our graveyard sort of acts as our hand. So we don't really need to have as much card draw as other decks need. And that's the deck. Yuna is really, really cool to have as a rule 0. It's plenty of fun to play. It's not too strong. It's not too weak. I find that you could pretty much have a good game with this deck no matter what the pod you're in. So give this a try if you really, really love Final Fantasy X. You like the flavor that you actually have a summoner as your commander, or you just really like sagas. And Terra didn't feel like the Saga commander for you. I really think that Yuna does a better job filling that role. What I also need you guys to do before you leave, we need you to like, comment, and subscribe. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and we can like officially call ourselves YouTubers because we'll actually be able to make money from the things that we give you guys. We are also setting up a Patreon. I'll put the links down below. We are going to start adding things to our Patreon, so look out for that. Usually, I'm not by myself. We have the vicious scumbag that I can get to banter, but sometimes I'm going to do things solo dolo. I am your honorable sensei, and we are Longturnlarry Podcast. Bitches.